Building a high-performance culture where digital and DevOps are a part, let's call it, of the operating model is not something easy to do. Of course, you can read a lot about change management. You can read about a lot of, let's call it, technologies and how to use and build that culture. But I believe that even today, with the ongoing pandemic, the well-being of the individuals is critical. And just let me emphasize that what I believe about culture is something that's being created by, let's call it, the diversity of the people that are working into the company, but also the direction and the behavior of the leadership, but also about, let's call it, the economics and the context where the company works it in. What I believe is very critical is to start with yourself. What is really your own values? How do you build that culture? Where do you want to go? And of course, I can use all those, let's call it, fancy terms like strategy eats culture, a culture eats strategy for breakfast. But I believe culture is really something about how do you create an environment where people feel welcome, where they have their well-being, where they also, with the ongoing stress of the pandemic, feel well, and how do you deal with that? So in NXP, what we have done, we spent time on cultural collaboration, and we work with some partners today on how do you understand the different cultures between, for example, Romania and the Netherlands, Netherlands and America, Netherlands and Romania itself, but also Romania and India and America, because we believe that we have quite some cultures in NXP, and for sure in NXP IT, the majority of our workforce is being spread in Romania, in India, America, and the Netherlands itself. And that culture that we need to build, and of course high performance, but also that's called high trust. So how do you build a culture where there's a use of high level of trust? That means that you need to understand each other. You need to know how the other cultures value specific things. And that's where we spend currently the majority of our time on. By, for example, working with Ilse Kerlings from GBA, but also working with Xavier, who is one of our partners from Accenture, who helps us to understand the differences between I&D, inclusion and diversity, and how those, let's call, different ethnicity demographics are working together and what does it mean for your culture. And that clarity of understanding on those differences means also that you allow the different ways of operating with those individuals. And I believe every individual contributes by creating that culture. And if you understand each other better and you trust each other, there will be a high performance culture. And that's not something that you create, that's something that you really need to make sure that you put a lot of effort and time on understanding individuals' interests, etc. Embarking on a DevOps journey. You need to understand that the journey itself is not the purpose. So I always say transformation or implementing DevOps is not a purpose on itself. There is no golden bullet, and I think that's something very critical to understand, because you need to be in contact of your individual people. Because implementing technology, so as the CI/CD pipeline, the tools, the testing, the automation, robotic process, the cloud, the self-services, the shift left, every principle that you can think of in a digital or DevOps world that you can be embarking on, you can easily implement that in your organization. Because sometimes it's even by a license code or simple P card, a credit card, you will active and give access to your software required for your technology pipeline, the DevOps tool chain, the digital tool chain that you're building. However, if you embark on that journey, then you need to be clear how do you drive adoption of that mindset? How do you drive and create the adoption of that specific behaviors? What do you want to see your employees' behavior being exemplified? What is really required to adopt the technology, the process itself by the people? And I think that's where you need to spend the most of the time on. What are now the behavior specifics? Is it about the leadership? Is it about the collaboration? It's about taking initiative. And if you look, for example, to the DASA DevOps framework about the competence, it's about courageous, being courage. And if you embark on that journey, you need to spend time on what is in it for the employee. And I can tell you, not everyone will be able to will be part of that journey, will be make the end of the journey, because it's a continuous change and continuous iteration and development of those specific stepping stones and specific building blocks of that journey. And when discussing with a few of my colleagues who really also are with me on this journey, we really noticed that the big thing is keep discussing and and explaining to those individuals who are part of the journey what's in it for them. For some, it will mean additional skills, additional knowledge, making an impact, but also making sure that they understand what are they contributing to the corporate goals. And sometimes it's very easy to, that NXP promise, secure connections for a smarter world. And how does it mean really for the individual employee? Because they are working on reducing the lead time, the cycle time, but also improving the quality of the processes we operate. IT processes, value chains in the business, order to cash or other value streams by acquiring customer. How do you improve those value streams and processes? By using technology, by using processes that you automate by using robotic process automation. And that means that you need to be able to get under the skin of those employees who are part of that journey, as such that you also demonstrate this is what you could do, this is the impact that you're making for the organization. And that's also what I'm asking myself continuously. Because I'm some millennial, I'm born in just after the 1980s, and I'm still aiming what impact can I make? How can I contribute to the bigger picture? What's the purpose of what I'm doing? And that's something that I believe if you're able to articulate that in a very well way, then you'll also be able to create a followership and guiding coalition with a mission and objective, with a proper direction and how to make that impact. First, let it bring back into coaching. What is the role of a coach? The coach is also making sure you take the one who is being affected by that change or is being affected by a certain situation that's been created by opportunity out of the market, by those forces that are asking us to be more competitive, to reduce the time to market. The coach needs to understand in how the business context, what is the real business context, what are the individuals that you are having, and how, what's the solution that's been created by those architects, by those technology leaders, and how do you make sure that you coach the organization? How do you build that guiding coalition? How do you build that transformation team? Making sure that you take everyone as much as possible, and I would like to make sure as much as possible, because it's not a bus where you start with all the people in the bus and you'll end with all the people in the bus, because sometimes you just feel that someone will not be part of the journey or the end of the journey. But the role of the coach is to make sure that they understand, they keep articulating how to onboard those individuals, how to connect those strategic vision and those objectives and clear objectives and key results into those interests of the individuals, and explain to the leaders. They are really the liaison between the change. So what does the leader envision? What are the technologies that they envision? What are the people and what the skills and the competence required to get those people on board? And how do you make sure you transform that into a change program? And the change program that needs to be managed and properly being set up by clear communication, making sure you understand the interest of the individuals, tailor the message towards the individuals, tailor the message towards the business, to the customers. So how are you gonna, it's called embark on that journey, and making sure that continually during the journey, you keep an eye on quality, speed of execution, but also if people are on board, if there still is a level of trust. Because also at the end of the journey, if those coaches and those leaders will make a step back or decide to embark on other opportunities, you would like to make sure that it is a solid change, it's still there. It's not dependent on a few individual heroes. One of the things I always keep articulating to my team, we don't need more heroes. We need to make sure that we have knowledgeable skills and people who have the right purpose and motivation to achieve those common goals they have set out together to do the right thing for the company. And to make sure you do the right thing, you know the right thing, you need to keep communicating. And I think that the part of a clear change and clear coach is that you keep communicating the interest of the individual, the interest of the community, and you try to harmonize those interests in the same direction. That's a very good question. So what is the leader and the coach? Let me start when leadership. And that's a question on the differences between a coach and a DevOps leader. That's not easy to articulate, because I believe everyone is a leader, even the coach is a leader. But if I then need to put it in blunt words, then the leader is a beneficiary who will have benefit of realizing the change, who is leading a specific value stream, a product or portfolio responsibility into the right direction. Where the coach is often not directly the one who has the benefits, but will be part of the team. The leader is often being managed by the targets and objectives and key results set out by, for example, the shareholders or the customers or the business owners who he or she represents, while the coach is often representing the interest of the team and try to harmonize all those interests in between. And I think that's also driving different behaviors. While the coach can say, hold on, dear customer, hold on, dear stakeholders. The team is not ready to embark on the next adoption of the solution, or is not yet ready, or has to deal with a lot less called restructuring or other activities that's going on. You need to make sure that the team's mindset and healthiness and wellness remains at a specific level before embarking on the next change. Well, the leader, and I also can look to myself, is often changing. Okay, now we have reached station A. Let's move into the next one. Let's move on because we are ready. We are now on a flow. Let's continue this flow. Well, it's also sometimes good to say, step back, rest, look into the ongoing context. We have the pandemic. We have some unstable world economy. So how do we deal with that? How does it affect the team? And how do we embark on that next journey? What I try to explain is that the coach is in contact with the leader, the benefits, etc., but still represents the most of the team and the organizational readiness, while the leader tries to push as hard as possible to achieve the benefits, of course, not at all costs, but often are being managed by other targets. And that just drives different behaviors that you need to be aware of, leader and as coach. And I think there needs to be a good collaboration and sometimes constructive conflict to make sure you do the right thing for the people and the company to achieve an optimal speed for driving the benefits and results.